In this video, we're going to be talking about DC superheroes who I think can solo the Avengers. This list will not have Batman or Superman on it, because I feel like those two have been done to death. And as a final qualifier, I'll be saying that these characters would be able to beat the Avengers in succession, meaning one after another. Because let's be honest here, if all of the Avengers swarm one of these characters at once, it's game over. And every single character on this list would be stomped into oblivion. And since there are so many characters that have been part of the Avengers roster, I'm going to be limiting it to the original founding members. Which means, unfortunately, no characters like Captain America or even Spiderman. With that being said, let's get into this list. Starting off this list, I think that Martian Manhunter would easily be able to destroy the Avengers. He may have some trouble with the Hulk, but I don't think that anyone else is going to be giving him any kind of hassle. Martian Manhunter is incredibly powerful. Some people might even say he might be slightly on par with Superman. And if you know anything about Superman, that is an insane compliment. This is all depending on the writer, that is.
Toriyama.
But beyond super strength, he has telepathy, the ability to fly, the ability to shapeshift into different animals and people, whether they be terrestrial or extraterrestrial, and he is incredibly smart. And his only real weakness is fire, which thankfully none of the Avengers from the core unit have that ability to use. I mean, the closest you would get would maybe be Tony Stark with his repulsor blast, but I mean, I wouldn't even say that that's going to be fire. I would still say that Martian Manhunter would be able to take him out with no issue. I suppose it would depend on what armor Tony's wearing at the time, but I wouldn't classify a repulsor blast as being in the same category as an actual fire. Thor might be an issue for Jon Jones, but I think he would still be able to take him. Realistically, I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue, considering in the past, Thor has been bested by the likes of Hercules and even Conan the Barbarian. And when Thor was beaten by Hercules, he still had Mjolnir, so I don't think this is going to be too close of a fight. And even though the Hulk is one of the strongest Avengers, I don't really think he's going to be a big problem either. Specifically because, in the past, the Hulk has been defeated by characters like Thor, Iron Man, Daredevil, and even Dr. Octopus. I don't think this is going to be an issue. If it did come down to just raw, pure brute strength, Hulk takes it. But if Jon Jones, Martian Manhunter, is able to strategize and come up with a plan while he's fighting, I gotta hand it to Jon Jones. Realistically, Iron Man wouldn't be that big of a challenge either, considering, I mean, Tony Stark's pretty fragile-minded. Yes, he is incredibly smart, but let's be honest here. He's also an addict, and even if you're going by the MCU, Tony Stark is a dude who had a breakdown after he witnessed the Battle of New York, and snapped when he learned what really happened to his parents. So, yeah, I'm gonna give this one to Martian Manhunter all the way. And the final founding members of the Avengers would be Man and The Wasp, Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, or, you know, they're married. And taking out the scenario that the internet came up with, where they would win against Thanos in Endgame, I don't see a path to victory. I think that Ray Palmer, the Atom, would be able to destroy the Avengers. He definitely would stand a good chance at least. To preface this, I'm going to say it's the same rules as Man and The Wasp versus Martian Manhunter, meaning we take out the scenario that the internet came up with for Ant-Man to beat Thanos. You know what I mean. And instead, in this scenario, I'm going to say that Ray Palmer acts exactly like Hank Pym did in the episode of What If. It's a similar scenario, considering they're both basically super geniuses and have the exact same powers. The only difference is, instead of Ant-Man just being a regular guy who shrinks down really small but retains his relative power, the Atom basically has an Iron Man suit in some renditions. In others, he doesn't. But in this one, I'm gonna say we'll go with that Legends of Tomorrow suit. And realistically, Ray Palmer is a genius-level scientist that would be able to synthesize basically any kind of toxin he would need. And he can shrink down small enough that the giant enemies like the Hulk or even Thor really wouldn't be able to do much against him. And since we're saying he has the Legends of Tomorrow suit so he can be airborne, what can Tony Stark even do about it? The only thing he'd have to watch out for would really be Ant-Man. I mean, we've all seen what happens to Janet when she goes up against a guy who shrinks. So at this point, it really would just come down to who's the best hand-to-hand fighter. And I'm going to put my money on Ray Palmer. Another character who would be able to take down the Avengers is Plastic Man. Plastic Man is basically Mr. Fantastic on steroids. He can turn himself into a functioning helicopter. So I'm pretty sure he can take out the Avengers. He's incredibly powerful in Injustice, and he'd basically be able to wrap up all of the superheroes with his elastic body and render them immobile. But if you really want to get dark with it, he could just suffocate them all. And don't get me wrong, that's incredibly dark and something that would be out of the ordinary for him. But if it's a life and death scenario, and there's no holding back, I think that Plastic Man takes it. His body can't be ripped apart, so there's nothing the Hulk or even Thor would really be able to do. And you might think that even Iron Man would be safe. But Plastic Man would go through even the smallest gaps in Iron Man's armor and attack him from the inside. Plastic Man is honestly one of the scariest potential villains, so thank God he's on the good side now. Well, I mean, he was a petty thief, but he turned over a new leaf when he got his powers, and yeah, you know. I think that Hal Jordan would be able to go toe-to-toe with the Avengers and come out victorious. And the reason I say this is because when Hal Jordan turned into Parallax, he basically wiped out the Green Lantern Corps, taking most of their rings. If he's able to wipe out the other Green Lanterns, I have absolutely no hesitation in saying he won't have a problem taking out the Avengers, especially just the starting lineup. As long as his willpower doesn't waver, he would be able to take out every single one of them meticulously. His only limitation would be his own imagination. If you want to get really technical with it, he was infected with a space parasite which turned him into Parallax, so okay. But let's also be honest here, in that same vein, he was able to become the freaking Spectre, making him one of the most powerful DC characters of all time. So yeah, regardless of which version of Hal Jordan we're picking, he still has my bet. He would definitely still be able to mop the floor with the entire Avengers lineup. Because unless they were able to really truly strike fear into this Green Lantern, there's nothing they can do. And he really wouldn't have anything to fear in the first place, considering he has the strongest will out of all of the Green Lantern Corps. Now I don't think he's going to be faced by, realistically, a couple of superpowered characters who he would be able to take on a day-to-day basis. Now, someone who I think would truly surprisingly be able to beat the Avengers, might shock a couple of people, is Shazam. Because if you think about it, Shazam already has the strength of Hercules, as that's the H in his name. And by the way, as we've already established, Hercules was the one who beat Thor, Thor was the one who beat the Hulk, so with that logic, wouldn't Shazam be the one who can basically beat all of them? Plus, he has magic, so that's another point on his side. He would be able to overload the Iron Man suit, rendering him unable to do basically anything by using his lightning. Or I suppose it would supercharge it depending on which suit he's using, but it's semantics at this point. But still, he's incredibly fast, and none of the Avengers are speedsters, so they wouldn't be able to keep up with him. He has a multi-thousand-year wizard who's given him his powers. He basically has the power of the Greek gods on his side, so there is absolutely no way that any of the original Avengers would be able to touch him. Honestly, because of his sheer speed and power, I don't think that they could even land a single hit, unless he let them. Now, the downside about Shazam is that in reality, even though he has all of this power, he's a little kid. It's just Billy Batson. Due to his inexperience in that regard, he may not be able to actually tap into his full power and potential. And he would be incredibly naive considering he's like 10? But I still think that he would probably be able to stand up and have a hell of a fight on his hands. And in a hypothetical scenario where Billy actually did train and became more proficient in fighting in his normal form, then I think it would be game over for basically any Marvel character at this point. Now this one's a little cheap, and you'll see what I mean, but the Flash would absolutely destroy basically any character in the Marvel universe. Hands down. It's not even a fight. Honestly, I don't think there's many characters in all of fiction that would be able to beat the Flash. He's kind of one of the most overpowered characters that's ever been made. I mean, he has the ability to throw lightning bolts, create tornadoes, suck the air out of rooms using his incredible speed. The dude's so fast, he can basically travel faster than light and move through time. Like, it's insane. What can this guy not do? But that's besides the point. And I'm not going to say the easiest way he could destroy the Avengers by going back in time and stopping them from being born. But I mean, he could. And if he really wanted to, he could just throw him into a different time period. I mean, in Injustice, one of his finishing moves on his ultimate attack is by smashing the nose off the Sphinx using the enemy. But as he also does in his finishing move, he could just leave them back in time in a prehistoric era to fight a freaking dinosaur. Realistically, the Flash could do so many different things. The Flash can move so fast he could phase through their body and disrupt their vital organs, use small tornadoes in his hands to collapse the enemy's lungs, or even grab them and move so fast he can throw them at the speed of light into the sun. Good lord, this got dark. But it's true. The Flash is arguably one of the most overpowered and underutilized characters in the DC. And I think it goes beyond just the Avengers, and I'm pretty sure the Flash could solo just about anybody between Marvel and DC. If there's no time limit on the fight, then I say probably, most likely, Captain Atom. And it's pretty obvious. I mean, think about it. Captain Atom emits radiation. What more do I have to say? Do you really want me to get into more detail?
It can't get worse, right? It can and it will, and here it is.
He could just give everybody cancer from his radiation. Well, I guess except for the Hulk. But we really don't know the true limit of how much radiation, specifically gamma radiation, the Hulk can absorb. But that would be a hell of a lot for him to try to absorb. There are many other characters that I think would absolutely be able to body the starting lineup of the Avengers. Especially the magic ones, like Zatanna, Dr. Fate. Hell, I'm sure even Constantine could put up a good fight. And there are many others that I didn't cover. Do you think these characters would be able to take on the Avengers starting lineup? Do you think your opinion would change if we added other characters to the Avengers team? For instance, Captain America, or maybe even Spider-Man? Leave a comment down below and let me know. And don't forget to subscribe because we do upload new videos every Saturday morning at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So be there. Don't forget to leave a like on this video and ring the bell for future notifications. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.